Norway phe ki lungting khang gi lirim sin si nang khe ku le ya chamdi tashle ngatin chin si hi chinda gu be che ge yin chino khosgem gu chembu chogi ngui chung zenam ki longi digi gi sherap ham wisdom of happiness shebate sui suri longi thudon tho teng thang bu sim bu shuna yo bathang singbu gi je gu tho amrike Hollywood longi chapdön ba chajen tha phedön ke gyo wa Richard ge la thang longi the chapti ba Barbara Miller la tha Phillips Dallas la Manuel Bauer la 대신 뱀이 직주기 시경 뱀바 치린 초던 그 중무 제준 뱀을 제 체벽 나여브레 롱이 대나 공장 기주 개굴을 패배지노 콘스겸 그 체부 초기 조와 미 남라 낭심 기시대 당 디기 춘탑 제나여바 당 드랍 예직 대신 시대 드랍시 응원규 용체 조보 미 셈규를 참제 배유 공배 동급에 람든 뜨난제 여바카 세든 슈여바 마세 콘스겸 그 체부 초기 응외중 제남 디기기 셰럽 제베테 주리 롱이 뒤든 토 탱탕부 싱비 슈제 진다 주베 체 니슈닌 아리 통계 뉴욕의 우드스톡 그도 싱비 슈여바 당 다사 계지 롱이 뒤든 탱쪽선 백업 젠베 슈차 탄텔 디가 챙아 페베 롱이 테니 소준 바코네 직탄 빠르빠 차치 쿠샵 마누엘 볼 라단해 조월 롱이 테낭 트윈탄 규림 학벌 쿠샵 공기 진호 콘스캠 그 첨부 초기 군든 둘로망리 빠르베 차레 나웨 용소서 던텔 인게 토네 첸지 슈기엔 Just Manuel, we are thrilled to have you here with us today. And for the very first question, recently Sigyong Pimpasringla had shared a brief overview of this film, of this documentary, where he went on to talk about the film really revolving around His Holiness's thoughts on peace, on compassion. And now that this documentary is to be screened at Dharamsala Film Festival, Manuel, tell me, how excited are you for this milestone?
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, it's a very big day, I think. We dedicated a lot of effort and time, the team, Barbara Miller, Philippe Delacqui, and then later Richard Gere and Oren Moverman in this project. And it's beautiful to have the opportunity, thanks to the International Campaign of Tibet and the Dharamsala International Film Festival, to give a free screening. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's quite an effort to, the DIF will keep their extremely professional equipment one day longer just to give a free screening, and I'm very happy for this, to show the movie to the public for free.
Okay, so Mr. Manuel, can you please tell us about the core message or the key takeaway of this particular Wisdom of Happiness documentary, and what motivated you to make this documentary?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was invited for this work. It started with 3 people. It's Philippe Delacqui, Barbara Miller, and Walter Kamm, and they approached me to join the project. It was not my initiative, and I never would have dared to, because I'm a photographer. I'm not a filmmaker. So, but then they pushed, and they said, well, don't worry, we help you to become a filmmaker. So then I joined, and the motivation for me always is Tibet. Even if I take pictures of non-political subjects, I mean, in my in my head, the motivation is always somehow to contribute and somehow to try to help Tibet. As a political issue as well. But the motivation for this movie is to spread His Holiness secular message. And it's not a Buddhist movie, it's not a religious movie, it's really trying to bring together, to make a synopsis or a synthesis of the legacy of His Holiness message to our world in our time. So it's kind of a modern movie. His Holiness talks about the problem of our times, and His Holiness is presenting a very simple solution to all these problems.
And now that you have talked about this movie really delving into the themes of inner peace, happiness, and just being a normal human being, how has your definition of happiness, or how has your definition of inner peace changed after your association with His Holiness? Just share us
Yeah.
your personal perspective on happiness.
I mean, for me, it's compassion-based. The big privilege I had as a photographer of so many years to be allowed to be in such a close distance to His Holiness is to see His Holiness in all his thoughts, talks, and actions. That compassion is the only center of everything. It's so logical that compassion actually is the solution. And when I was allowed to travel with His Holiness for certain days or weeks, it was so natural and clear for me. And when I came home to my busy Swiss life, for a while, you know, I always reacted in compassionate ways. But then I have to be honest, you know, after a while, you know, the daily life and it takes over again, all these stupid problems. Oh, my dishwasher makes a strange noise or something. All these stupid things come into. I think it's quite difficult to implement it into the daily life, but it's the only way. And the movie Wisdom of Happiness tries to explain this and show us. And the other very important message of Wisdom of Happiness is not only about happiness, but it's how can we control our negative emotions? Because the very, very base of all the problems we have in our times, name it, war, climate change, doesn't matter, all the problems we have, the very simple solution is we have to control our negative emotions, because all our problems are based on this. So there is many movies about solutions like solar panel here, windmill there, but actually all the problems are based on greed and hatred and jealousy and the bad negative emotions. So we have to learn how to deal with this. So that's the main message, the key message of Wisdom of Happiness.
And there are already plenty of documentaries made on His Holiness, and there are numerous books written on His Holiness. So does Wisdom of Happiness offer any new insights or informations on His Holiness that weren't explored in previous works?
That's a very good question, and it was for the team a very, very big question. And when I joined the project, I didn't know the director and the producer. And in the very beginning, the producer said, we have to study all the movies that were done on His Holiness, so we don't do the same again. Yeah. And so this really impressed me. That was one of the first things that I knew that we will do. And he had a researcher checking it's dozens of movies where His Holiness has appearance. And soon we learned what they all do and how they work. And so we wanted to have a different approach. And the main, the speciality of this movie, or what it makes it unique, there is only His Holiness' voice. There is no experts talking about His Holiness. You hear only His Holiness' voice. And that's a very difficult task, to make a movie with just one voice. Not having a view from outside, not being able to change. So dramatic, like in the movie making, it's a very big task. And I think we managed, and now we have a movie where His Holiness talks directly to you, because we had His Holiness very close to the camera. We had a very simple lighting, and you feel like His Holiness is sitting just opposite of you, talking to you.
Okay, you have mentioned that this film is about sharing His Holiness's profound teachings to the global audience, right? Have there been any opportunities where you got to meet with His Holiness and presented this film to him directly?
We asked. And I never expected, because I know that His Holiness is not so much interested in what is done about him. I never expected that he would look at my pictures. He did, and I was very pleased. but I never would have expected, because His Holiness is focused on much more important things than his image or documenting things. Or he is very disciplined in his work, in meditation, in his teachings. He doesn't spend much time watching movies or something. As you know, he might sometimes watch a natural documentary, but never a feature film or something. You know, he is a very, very disciplined monk, and I never expected. But I saw him on a mobile clip, watching part of it on a small laptop. Yeah.
And what made you feel when you saw that clip?
I think, sure, it would be an honor and all, but that's all egoistic. For me, we have approval that the movie is his words and it's good. That's what counts. And what counts is that it's a good movie for Tibet and Tibetans, and it hopefully spreads the message of His Holiness. That's the objective. It doesn't matter if His Holiness makes like this to us, or is happy with us. That doesn't matter at all.
Okay. While working on the film, or in general, you have plenty of opportunities where you were allowed to meet with His Holiness, to capture his moments in your photographs. So can you please share us your really experience with His Holiness, and what was it like to work so closely with His Holiness? And can you please share some personal anecdotes with Dalai Lama that kind of stood out in your life?
Well, it sounds very strange, you know. Everybody says, "Oh, you're so privileged," but to be honest, it was a very difficult work, because I was there as a photographer. I was not there as me, as a person, as a private person. You come in very rare situations. I was allowed to be there when His Holiness was in retreat. Nobody's there. And it takes long until you get the permission, until there is a good day that you go in, and then so it's a long process, and you're really nervous. And then finally you're there, what you dreamed of. But the motivation is not that I see it or I experience it. The motivation is to bring out a good image. But now I'm there, His Holiness in a retreat, not talking to anybody for maybe weeks, and I'm there to take a good picture, but I disturb His Holiness. Back then, you know, the camera clicked, and I have to, as a photographer, I have to move for the right angle. I search for the best picture. You don't want to do this. I don't want to be there, because it's awful to disturb His Holiness. But then the good thing is, I once asked His Holiness, don't I disturb too much? And he said, "Don't worry, I just ignore you." So, you know, His Holiness is praying for all sentient beings in the whole universe, but me, poor Manuel, he's ignoring, you know, it's horrible. No. So, what is really good about His Holiness, to photograph him, is that he is so focused, as you know, in just parts of seconds he can focus on something. So if he wants to be disturbed, he can be disturbed. If he don't want, you cannot disturb. I never had this good situation as a photographer. You know, you want to not be in the scene. You want to not change the reality. With His Holiness, absolutely no problem, because he's so focused. So, yeah, it was a hard thing emotionally, not to shake too much, not to be too nervous, because I was there for the good image, for the future, for us now, but also for scientists in 100 years. I believe in a document. So you have to somehow keep your private stuff, your egoism, everything aside, and also the professional pressure you have to deal with, because in that one moment you have to capture, you have a responsibility to bring that image out. So it's not personal, it's not, wow, I'm there, or so there. But sure, there is a lot of anecdotes, and
just tell us some of it.
What should I say? It's just beautiful, you know. his humor, as you know, he's so direct and it's so beautiful. And there is small things where I think it can be just very simple and beautiful. It's maybe not important, but in Japan, he was alone in a room to be served the soup, and it took very long until, in Japan, the protocol is quite impressive. So a lady came on the floor and offered this soup, and then she disappeared, and it was completely quiet, and I was there, doesn't dare to move me because His Holiness was enjoying the soup. And then he finished, and then, he would say, he watched the watch and he looked to the ceiling, and then he said to me, well, it was very good, but I hope there is more coming. And then I didn't have, usually I carry a little cereal bar, because if I don't have time for food, I need some energy. So, but I didn't have one. So I said, I'm really sorry, I don't have anything to offer, only a chewing gum. So he said, well, let's exchange. I gave him a European chewing gum, and he gave me South Korean candy out of his bag. And for me it was so nice, this interaction, but also he comes with he had a Swiss Ricola, a candy, and a South Korean toffee. So that shows his international travels. His candies in his bag were so international. Yeah. But then his discipline, when I showed him the book 2005 to get his approval for printing, he carefully watched at all the images. His Holiness really admires photography and he knows a lot about it. So he critically checked all the images that will be in the book. And there was no comment or hesitations with no of the images. There is some images quite difficult, I think, to see for many people, because His Holiness wanted to show himself in a very simple human way. So there you see some pictures where you're not used to. He's just in his
I got it.
he's not wearing his robe properly, things like this. But he wanted that to show, I'm one of you. But then he turned all these pages, accepting all these private pictures, and then he only stopped at one moment. And you see the whole room, his study room, from far. And there was Rezong Rinpoche opposite to him, to His Holiness. And Rezong Rinpoche gave an oral transmission of a text to His Holiness. And His Holiness said, no, stop this image, no, we won't publish, because I'm the student of Rezong Rinpoche in this image, and I don't want to sit higher than him. I'm his student. And then he asked for, a measure, to measure the distance, I don't know, centimeter. So he asked for this, and then he measured the cushion, how high his cushion is and how high the cushion of Rezong Rinpoche is. And then he said, no, it's okay, you can publish it. I sit lower than my teacher. And again, I was puzzled. The only problem in that 200 photographs was this one. I'm a student, I don't want to sit higher. And it was just a perspective in the image. And when His Holiness said, no, it's good, yeah, then he allowed me to publish. Again, this shows for me a lot about His Holiness, his humbleness. And back then he was 75 and saying, I'm the student of this important Rinpoche, I don't want to sit higher, for instance. Yeah.
Mr. Manuel, you have been a personal photographer of His Holiness for a very long time, and you have followed him to various locations for his public teachings and public guidances. And you have also published a book titled Journey of Peace, which has featured some of the most personal photos of His Holiness. So for Tibetans, we view His Holiness not only as a just leader, but we had this godlike reverence to him, where we have this profound respect and love towards His Holiness. So, Mr. Manuel, how do you really see His Holiness? Just give us a glimpse of that.
Well, I think, I cannot say, I cannot speak for you as a Tibetan, but I would like to add one quality. Mm-hmm. He's the most respected teacher. He's a unbelievable human being. But also I think it's quite private for us, isn't it? He's somehow, yeah, a very intimate, private person. A Pala, I don't know, but I think we carry him also in our heart, emotionally. And he's really how you say, a sample for us, how we should live. And so, yeah, it's not only that he's a leader and a great teacher, but I think it's also he helps us in every daily life. He gives us guidance, also in private problems. And it's not only this official person. And for me, it's the same. And when I did that work, really trying to get closer to visually understand and document who he is and how he functions internally also, I was scared of losing him, because I thought, now maybe I see behind the scene, and maybe it was just projection, that I project in him, I see in him some fantasy that is not there, you know. I make him bigger maybe than he is, or better than he is. But the good thing about knowing him closer is it's not true. He's even better. And this is really, because I saw now that I go closer, maybe I lose my Dalai Lama, you know what I mean? But it's not true. You read from every day, the respect is growing, because you see him in so many different situations, always being perfect. That really, so the respect, as closer you get it, the respect even grows.
Mr. Manuel, tell us, when did you meet His Holiness for the very first time?
I was a very young photographer, and I was asked to do a project about, can Tibet survive when the first generation of in the diaspora disappears, like the people who had the knowledge from Tibet, somewhere they're gone, and will the culture keep on being alive? So we were in South India, in the settlements, in Dehradun. It was a big research. And so I was also, His Holiness was part, I mean, we had to have pictures of His Holiness. So thanks to the contact of that gentleman, Hans Reutemann, a senior journalist, I had access to His Holiness. And as a young photographer, I thought this is just natural. I go in and out, presidents and famous stars, that's my job now. I wasn't realizing as a young chap how privileged I was. So we did an exhibition, so I could be at the residence. I had pictures His Holiness gardening, you know, beautiful. But I thought it's normal. And then His Holiness came to open our exhibition at the University of Zurich. And then there was a big thing, because, I mean, it was packed with people. Everybody wanted to hear His Holiness speak. So His Holiness wanted to have the opening speak of our exhibition, but then an official of the university came and took the mic. Before His Holiness started, he was on stage, His Holiness. He came and said, I'm very much sorry, we have to evacuate the university immediately. There is a bomb threat against His Holiness. So it was shocking, you know. And then, I mean, all the media was there, you know, and all the VIPs and government people. And then they evacuated the front line with the VIPs. The police came and took us, and I was there because I was this little photographer of that exhibition. So they evacuated His Holiness and us, special treatment. And all the public, you know, well, it's their problem with that bomb, you know. But we had this special treatment. But then long ways of emergency exits. But the main door outside to the car was locked. And everybody got really nervous, you know. Can you imagine? There is a bomb, and they cannot rescue His Holiness. So the police got really nervous. But there was one person completely quiet and having fun and a good mood. And it was the threatened Dalai Lama, threatened by his life. But he was okay. He had no problem with that bomb. So they set him in an office at the university. And I, being so young and not knowing the protocol and the respect to His Holiness was not that big yet, I approached him directly and said, naively, this bomb is not a problem for him. He's a living God. You can just fly out of the window. And His Holiness said, yes, like a little bird. And he started to fly around in that office. And it was just beautiful. And then they opened the emergency exit. We went out. They put himself in a car, drove him off. And I stood there in this garage all alone. And I thought, what happened? And the next day, all the papers, the TV, they broadcasted about that bomb. Nobody talked about my exhibition. You know, I'm the star here, but nobody mentioned even my exhibition. And then first I was disappointed, but then I realized, what happened? This man is threatened by life, by a bomb, by death. And he keeps such a good energy and such a good spirit and had fun. What is that? What is the quality? What is going on, you know, in his mind? How can he control his emotions so well? So that's how it started and continued.
Mm-hmm. That's such a wonderful story.
Sorry, it's long, but I like it. That was like the first experience with His Holiness, seeing him being threatened and staying so calm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Every bit of it was interesting.
I talk so long, I'm really sorry. Get into it, I'm very, maybe too fanatic.
Now you have talked about your arts, personal time with His Holiness, and you have dedicated much of your career life not only on His Holiness, but you have also projected the plight of Tibetans in your photo books and your documentaries. For example, you have produced this documentary called Yangdun's Journey, where the story revolves around a young Tibetan girl who kind of flees from Tibet, and you were with her all the time. So when was your first associations with Tibetans, or just maybe how do you came to know about the plight of Tibetans and His Holiness?
It was a senior journalist, and he wrote on Tibet already in the 60s. And he started to give me books about Tibet, 88. He started to kind of show me the topic and the horrible situation, the political situation, the tragedy in Tibet, the suffering of people. And so I started as a young photographer to be interested in the subject, into Tibet. And I knew as a young photojournalist, this could be the thing where it's important to focus on, because back then there was not much information about Tibet. So that was the motivation, and the motivation was always to try somehow to contribute, to help a little bit, to bring some understanding about the tragedy and the suffering and the political situation. And then when I first traveled to Tibet, I knew I could not, show the real, all the torture. I cannot go, hello, I would like to go in Trakchi prison to document a little bit. It's not possible as a photographer. Even traveling to Tibet, actually, officially was not, for me as a journalist, was not possible. But so the escape story then came up, because I knew I cannot really show the ugly problem, but I can show one of the results. If people flee from their loved country, from their families, and they risk their life by walking over the highest mountain range in the world, that proves that something is wrong in that country, because Tibetans never would want to leave Tibet. And so that was the motivation of the escape story with Yangdul. Yeah. And then, all the stories, even the movie now, is the movie Wisdom of Happiness for me is beautiful, to contribute in a new way, because as a photographer, after 30 years, you feel like, what can I contribute more? I wake up in the morning, I should be with His Holiness, it's important. But I made 100,000 of pictures already. What can it add more? And now being invited to do the movie Wisdom of Happiness is for me a beautiful moment, because I somehow can contribute also my my somehow, I don't experience from before, but in a new form as a movie and not photography. So it's quite a gift for me to have the opportunity to somehow come up with a new thing, not just another book or something. So yeah.
Okay, so having worked so closely with His Holiness on numerous occasions, and you also have a very a good understanding of the Tibetan movement. So what are your views on the future of the Tibetan movement? As in, where do you see our Tibetan movement in next 20 years, given His Holiness's age and increasing economy might of China? Where do you see our struggles?
Thank you very much for asking me this question, because this is a big concern about me. I think it's a very crucial moment. We have to accept His Holiness' age, which is completely fine and natural. His Holiness contributed so much to the world and to every one of us with such an immense energy. I mean, I saw days. You cannot imagine how much His Holiness worked. I can tell you one day, and you cannot believe what he did in this one day, It's just nearly not possible for a human to do this. So this he did for decades. So it's okay, he gets his rest now, We have to also offer him this rest. It's good that he has more time for himself. It's important. And he taught us, all his knowledge for his life, and he gave it and he taught it. He didn't, now it's maybe time to apply, or how to say, to give it to himself. Do it, It's natural also in the biography of a monk. Most of the monks do this transmission much, much earlier. So we have to accept it. So now my concern is you, the Tibetans, but the whole community is now having to take over this responsibility. I had this beautiful meeting in last June, not a meeting, we sat just opposite on a table, a young Tibetan living in Paris. She was maybe not even 18. And she told me, it's now we have to take responsibility. Tibet is alive. It's there. You are so well organized all over the world. There is structures, organization, there is networks. You have to stand up and say, yeah, His Holiness is great. And thank you for all the achievement. But we are Tibet. We are the future. We are here. Talk to us. You have politicians, you have offices all around the world. That's Tibet. And that has to happen now, she said, because if we wait too long and His Holiness be less active, His Holiness may be passing away. If we wait for this, it's too long, too long. It's no chance. It has to happen now to show the world that Tibet is alive. It's there. In Tibet, it's amazingly, after so long of suppression, that the spirit is there, but the exile structure is there. So stand up, show the world that that's Tibet. You, the whole community, that's Tibet. Not only His Holiness. His Holiness is an important part, and he did a great effort to bring Tibet to the world. But now it's there. It is in the world, and you are Tibet. Take over responsibility. The second concern I would like to share is we need unity. I mean, divide and rule is one of the oldest ways to destroy a cause or a people. The British did it in India. The British did it. I mean, it's a very old thing, huh?
Yeah.
And for the Chinese government, it's just great that you have a lot of internal problems now. But please, you have one central aim. It's so simple, the cause. It's free Tibet, isn't it? Or it's the identity. Or it's freedom of the Tibetan people, let's say, all around the world. It's very simple. You have a political cause as well. And you have to unify now. And you should not lose energies in regional conflicts, in political conflicts, in religion conflicts. You have to work together for sorry if I tell you what to do, but I include myself. That's maybe arrogant of me, but we all have to keep Tibet on the agenda, and it's a very good moment, because we know that His Holiness is less active, and the West, the politics, the economics, they look at China a little bit more critical than the last 20 years. So it's a perfect moment to stand up now and unify and show the world that Tibet is alive.
Okay, so you have said that, it's high time that we give His Holiness a rest, and we, as a youngster, we need to stand up for our Tibetan cause. So what message you have for these Tibetan young generations? Just give us 2-3 sentences.
Well, I think I feel the spirit is coming up. I felt some, maybe, my English is not good, sorry, but maybe a little bit of agony for a while. I thought, it's maybe, it falls apart or so, but since a year or so, I somehow feel it's there. The young people are there, they're active. The Wednesday dance. I didn't see many of them, but it's beautiful how you get together and joyfully dance, and live your Tibetan identity. And it has not just to be the dance. It should be political, it should be coming together, it should be networking, it should be working for Tibet and not just for me. And there should be dialogue. What is His Holiness teaching? It's not we and they. And the we and they is happening a little bit now in Tibetan society. But we are all one, and we have to work together. And but I see the momentum. I somehow feel it. Look, you sit here now. You do your job. You do your work for Tibet. You could just also say, I just want to, whatever, disappear, get some money, have a good, decent life. You're here, you do your job. Yeah. The cameramans do their job. That's what's needed.
Okay, with that, we're going to conclude this interview, and thank you for coming here. And I'm done with all my questions. Do you have anything extra to add, or to just...
How could I? You ask such great questions. Nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.